Secretary Alex Acosta resigned today. He's under fire for the way he handled a sex crimes case involving billionaire financier Jeffrey Epstein. We've got Amrit Singh, actually. He's looked into the legal side of things and all the secrecy. He joins us with former prosecutor Robin Sax, who has a special tie to the case.
That's right. Robin Sax, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
So you have a lot of experience with prosecuting sex crimes. So this case is obviously interesting to you. But before we get into your connection, I mean, we're seeing Jeffrey Epstein's influence and the coercion that he had on victims is reported in far and wide. But it wasn't just the victims, it was also prosecutors. Just today, we saw a letter from that was released. Acosta wrote it in 2011. He wrote, "What followed was a year-long assault on the prosecution and prosecutors." This is from Epstein. "I use the word assault intentionally as the defense in this case was more aggressive than any which I had previously encountered." And this ties into your decision not to be a part of this case, because you could have been, right?
That's right. In about 2010, I was actually in Florida, and I was approached by some victims advocates who came to me and said, "Listen, you won't believe what's going on here with this Jeffrey Epstein case." And here I was a, sex crimes prosecutor. I had prosecuted many different kinds of cases, put a lot of people in jail before, dealt with gang cases, all kinds of cases. And I came back to Los Angeles, and my husband at the time said to me, "Don't get involved in this case."
Wow.
And I was like, "Don't get involved with this case. I have to."
Right.
And then he said, "Look what's happening with all the people that are around this case. Look at all the people that are involved. Look at all the money." And this was, in 2010, this was after the plea deal, even without really knowing all the inner workings, but there was just such clear amount of money and power, and just now what we're hearing, all the kind of fears that you had with all the private investigators,
right,
and all the different tactics that were being used. I had 3 young kids at home. There was
right,
no way that I was going to, put my kids and family in
right,
danger.
I mean, as a career prosecutor, for you to step away from this case, that says a lot, because you deal with tough people, and you walked away from this case. It's interesting. I mean, when we talk about this non-prosecution agreement, I think this is what everyone is really interested in. There's a secret component to it. There's interesting language about it applying globally. Walk us into it a little bit and what the controversy is.
So the controversy with this is twofold. I mean, there's 2 different things that are completely interrelated. Whenever there is a plea deal, first of all, there's a victim's bill of rights. And under federal law, victims have a right to know what is going on with the various aspects of their case. And that includes what's going to happen by way of settlement. So they have a right to know whether there's going to be a plea bargain. They have a right to know what the terms and conditions are.
And in this case, the victims didn't know about the plea agreement.
That's correct. And so they didn't know about the plea agreement, and
right,
they certainly didn't know about this non-prosecution agreement.
Right.
And so therein lies the problem. Now, non-prosecution agreements are something that does not necessarily happen in a courtroom like a plea bargain would.
Right.
But the fact that they weren't told about the plea bargain to begin with, and not having knowledge of the non-prosecution agreement, shows that there was something clearly that the prosecutors were hiding.
Right.
Something they didn't want them to know.
Right. So Florida is the 11th Circuit. New York is the 2nd Circuit. This case is going to be tried with a new crime in 2nd Circuit. And 2nd Circuit's basically saying we are not going to honor this global plea agreement that you guys struck down in Florida, which is an implicit comment, obviously, on the nature of the plea agreement. When we talk about what could come from this case, as we're going to wrap up here, we could talk all day, but
right,
what do you hope comes from all this attention on sex crimes that you're seeing right now in plea agreements?
Well, I think, first of all, the first thing is that there should never be a non-prosecution agreement in a sex crimes case. A non-plea agreement is for a corporate fraud type of case, something
right,
where you can clean house, pay some money, where there are not real, live, personal victims. In this case, you have, 80, 100, potentially more than 100 victims that are in this case. This is not the type of case that you would expect to see a non-prosecution type of agreement, not when there is this type of severity of crimes.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for sharing all that insight with us, Robin. Really appreciate you being here. We'll talk again.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Robin. Chris.